Hey, it's Chronologically Gaming, the only channel that's perpetually retro because we're playing every video game in order of release. Welcome to the Backlog, where we're checking out the video games that we missed the first time around on the live show so that no game is left behind. Join me way back in 1974. And we were last in the arcade checking out World Cup football. This is the last video game that we can have some kind of idea of when it actually released. We're now going to be playing or checking out all the video games that were released at some time in 1974. Let's see what our next game is. Coming up next is Astrohockey. Let's check it out. Most of the games that we're going to be seeing for this episode are all going to be in the arcade, and this one is our first, the 91st video game that we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming, and it's the 63rd video game released in the arcade. Astrohockey is a Pong variant with 4 different game modes. The basic mode has 2 players bounce the ball around the screen with their paddles trying to hit the opposing goal. Another mode adds a variation that makes the ball change speed and direction at the center line. The other 2 game modes are identical to the first one, but only allow one player to play against the computer. This one is by Brunswick. You see that in the top left? It's the first and only game by Brunswick, the bowling company. I guess they started to try to do something with video games and realized we're just going to do bowling from now on. This one is the 53rd ball and paddle style video game we've seen so far. And it is incorporating a little hockey. You can see the advertising. This is the 10th video game we've seen that is marketed as hockey, but we all know it's just Pong. But this one's kind of special. It offers different game modes and variations. You can see it's showing 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can do 1 player versus player, 2 player versus player, and it has different game variations, which this is the 3rd video game we've seen so far that allows for that. The other ones have been Video Action and Sports Center. It is, if you look at the arcade cabinet, by the way, what we're looking at here is the only artwork. I have nothing else revealed for this game. Astrohockey is very, very obscure. You can see it's controlled with paddles. It is the 71st video game that's using paddle controls. That's how you just control video games right now. That is the way to control them. It is a variant of Pong, and the 48th game that we've seen that is copying Pong. And up to this point, every single video game that we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming has been made with using DTL or TTL logic. And there's only one game we've seen that I really don't know how it was made, and that was the Laser Clay Shooting System by Nintendo. So that game may have been made with the same DTL or TTL logic because there's no such thing as a microprocessor right now. So this one's no exception. This one still has no microprocessor inside. It does offer single player play, which is kind of nice, and multiplayer. It's the 72nd game we've seen so far in North America. And so this one, like we've seen with most of them, the arcade cabinets is what really shine. But since we can't play it ourselves, we have to give it a no rating and continue seeing everything else released at some time in 1974. Our next game is baseball, just baseball. Let's check it out, see what the advertisement flyer looks like. Oh, from Midway. This is cool. Our 92nd video game we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming, and the 64th we've seen in the arcade up to this point. If you look down in the bottom, it was made by lots of different companies. This one is the advertisement flyer for Midway. At this point, this one is Midway is one of the publishers, and we have also, there it is, the original was done by Ramtech, and here's the advertisement flyer by Ramtech. The 4th time we've seen this company, and it's going to get picked up by Seaberg Corporation, Volley Industries, and even Taito when it goes to Japan. But baseball is something special. This one's a little different than the other baseball. Up to this point, there's only one other baseball game that we've seen, video game, and that was on the Magnavox Odyssey. And again, it was kind of like board game / card game, and it really wasn't true baseball. This one is the next step, the closest thing to baseball up to this point. This one was done by Howell Ivey. The second time we've seen a video game done by him. He's going to eventually go on to Exidy fame, and the only other game we've seen by him has been Clean Sweep up to this point. This game is known by lots of titles: Ballpark, Batter Up, Deluxe Baseball, or TT Ballpark. So this one, I'm going to show a few different advertisement flyers and the different arcade cabinets. It's doing something that we've seen with a very few arcade games, which is an overlay. So I'm going to show you, this one's showing the actual screenshot, the Midway one, and you can see what's happening on the screen. Look at the screen. It actually has people on the screen. The only other game that's representing people right now is baseball that was done by Taito. So there you go. There's kind of an overlay showing a little bit of the field and the stadium. And so here we go. That's another really close screenshot showing what the players look like. Looks very different because I guess the Midway arcade marquee, the advertisement flyer, I don't know if that's the real picture for Ballpark. There you go. That's more of what you would be seeing on the back of the Ramtech one. Unequaled service and profitable features can be played with 1 or 2 players. What? No way. And here's one that's for the deluxe baseball, a truly realistic game. It boasts here. And yeah, this one is very different than anything else we've seen so far. Each of the players is shown on the field as little characters. Pitches can be fast, slow, or curved and result in a walk or a strike. Outfielders can be repositioned too. So very, very nice. This is also, all these different names and types of games marks this as the very first video game that has regional differences. When it was made first in North America by Ramtech, it had, we've seen video games that have changed the way the cabinet looks or the advertisement flyer, maybe changing the name. But this is the very first video game that actually has regional differences in the game itself. So when it was sent over to Japan and other places, they changed the game just slightly. Very little things. So cool that now we have video games when they go to different regions, they are being changed. And then we're back to our Midway advertisement flyer. So this is the very first video game with characters displayed. It is with the overlay assist to help on some of the arcade cabinets, and it's the 32nd video game we've seen that has overlay helping assist the graphics, because otherwise you'll just see the black and white graphics. It is the, you can see on this version, it just has some buttons and switches. This is only the 4th video game we've seen that's controlled with buttons only up to this point. And it is, again, another video game that does not have a microprocessor inside. And it was released originally in North America first, the 73rd video game in North America. So while I'd love to play this one, I cannot find a simulator at all. We got to give it a no rating and then keep going on this crazy quest to see everything. What's our next video game? Coming up next is Club Tennis. Let's check it out. Here's the advertisement flyer for Club Tennis, the 93rd video game, the 65th in the arcade, and Ramtech again with their 5th video game we've seen so far. This one was also picked up by Computer Games. You can see here the very first time we've seen anything by Computer Games up to this point. It's another ball and paddle video game, the 54th we've seen so far, and this one's trying to be tennis because it's tennis. So this one's just a general advertisement flyer about computer games and what they do, and then this one's breaking down the different types. There's the tennis one we're going to check out. They also have one called Spike It and one called Hockey or Pro Hockey, which I think we've already seen. I think we've seen 3 Pro Hockeys, which are still just Pong up to this point. So this one is trying to be tennis, even though it's just Pong. It is the 12th video game that is advertised as a tennis video game. This one has team play, because you can see how many knobs are on the screen. It's using paddles, the 72nd video game we've seen with paddle control. It is a 4-player capable video game. It is the 24th 4-player video game. And up to this point, there's only 2 games that are hot seat 4-player multiplayer. It's Invasion and Win on the Magnavox Odyssey. Everything else has been 4-player multiplayer where everyone gets to play at the same time. It's still Pong, though. It's the 49th copy or clone of Pong we've seen so far, and the 74th video game released in North America up to this point. There's a better example of the arcade cabinet for Club Tennis. So cool. The wood grain, it's just old school classic, but still more people copying Pong. I like that one. That's pretty cool. Another one we can't rate. We'll have to give it a no rating and keep going until we can finally play a video game. Our next release at some time in 1974 is still in the arcade. This is Electromotion IV. Let's check it out. And here's the advertisement flyer for Electromotion IV. Oh, nice. Go to the bar. This is the 94th video game we've seen. And I stress video game because there is a lot of mechanical games out there. This is video games. The 66th that we've seen in the arcade so far. And this is the first we've ever seen by Electromotion Incorporated. It is another ball and paddle video game. The 55th, just trying to be Pong, or kind of like Pong. It is allowed team play. And this one, I'm looking down at the advertisement flyer, and we have knobs and control that's under the table, which is kind of a nice touch. Beautifully accented with more wood. We need more wood grain in 1974. Yes, what you see, it's what you can't see that's beautiful. What's inside or what's below the table, which is really nice. So this one is the 25th 4-player multiplayer video game we've seen so far. The 73rd that's controlled with paddles. Everything needs to be controlled with paddles. There's another one with the example of the arcade cabinet, or one of the cocktail arcade cabinets. Beautiful and profitable. This is the 50th video game that has copied Pong. We've made it to the 50th video game, not official Pong, but people copying Pong. 50 games so far that are essentially just Pong. This one's the 75th video game we've seen released in North America. And if you flip it over the back, it's telling you a little bit more about how it's fun and easy to operate and rugged. It has 2-player or 4-player with, again, 25 cents and 50 cents. Gosh, it's so expensive, but they're raking in the dough right now. Electromotion's family of proven moneymakers, and I mentioned it was called Electromotion IV. I have found no proof of all the other models of Electromotion 1, 2, and 3. This is one that's more has advertisements and pictures and artwork for. And here's some more from Electromotion. And they keep talking about 4. This is, I guess, because it's 4-player compatible. It's also 2-player compatible. But these were very popular in bars, as you can see. Lots of people having fun. Smoking and drinking, playing video games. Another one that we have to keep as a no rating because we can't play it ourselves, even though it's probably just Pong. All right, coming up to our next video game released at some time in 1974. It's Flim-Flam. Let's check out Flim-Flam. I love that name. Here's the advertisement flyer for Flim-Flam, our 95th video game, and the 67th that we've seen in the arcade. This one is the very first video game we've seen by Meadows, and they're going to go on to do lots of different games. Flim-Flam is essentially a Pong variant. Duh. Players control their on-screen paddles using joysticks. You can move in all directions. The goal remains to hit the ball against the opposing side of the screen. The game is released in a 2-player upright model and a 2- or 4-player, like you see here, cocktail model. What makes the game unique compared to other Pong-style games is there's a button that players can press which alters the speed and course of the ball. Players can choose between 3 skill levels, changing the size of their paddle. That's pretty big. It's still essentially a ball and paddle game, the 56th that we've seen so far. And the advertisement flyer is very nice. Flipping over the back, it zooms in a little bit more on the cabinet, and it even shows down there at the bottom the joystick, and they actually call it, in quotes, the joystick, which from the very beginning, we've been playing with joystick type controls since 1971, but they didn't really call them joysticks. It's just now picking up a little after 1972. So this one is only multiplayer competitive to play. So you cannot have team play, and there also is no single player play. It's the 26th video game we've seen that is 4-player compatible. And this one is special because it has the difficulty levels and options to change that. It's only the second game we've seen that allows a video game where you can change difficulty levels. The only other one has been Balloon Gun by Sega up to this point. It is controlled with a joystick. So strange. The 9th video game we've seen controlled with a digital joystick. This one is the very first, though, video game that allows absolute control. In other words, you're taking this joystick and the paddle is freely moving all the way around the screen. And while specs are a little obscure at this time period, I'm curious to know if this really was a digital joystick. It's possible it was analog, and some of these systems may have been analog, but I just can't prove it. It is the 51st video game we've seen that is copying Pong, and it's the 76th video game we've seen released in North America up to this point. So this one has a few different models. You can see this is the model F1, but look at the screen, how it's played. It's essentially Pong in quadrants, and you can pick the speed or difficulty that you want the paddles to move around. And there's a very rare arcade cabinet showing, or cocktail cabinet showing it opened up. That's pretty cool. Another example of the arcade cabinet. Man, so much wood grain. It's awesome, but look at that. 4 different joysticks controlling. A little different because we're mostly used to paddles up to this point. It has no microprocessor inside. Still, there's a better example of the arcade cabinet. Very, very slick. Man, I just want to go to the bar and play right now. We can zoom in a little bit and see what the joysticks are like. So they call them joysticks, but they don't really look like what we'd consider joysticks. They're more like small sticks. But right here, it kind of looks like they might be analog, but I just can't prove it. It's possible they were freely moving digital joysticks, though. And there's the example of novice, pro, or expert modes you can select from. So cool. So love to see what it would be like myself, but we'd have to give it a no rating for now and just admire the artwork. Let's see what our next game is. Coming up next is One on One, the 96th video game we've seen, and it's released at some time in 1974. The 68th we've seen in the arcade up to this point. Here's the advertisement flyer for 1-on-1. This is the second game we've seen by PMC Electronics. They've done TV table tennis, and now they're doing basketball. 1-on-1 is a basketball game for 2 players. Each player controls a character, but unlike earlier Pong-style games, when the ball hits the paddle, the player can hold the ball. There is a 10-second possession rule, so the player must shoot or, let go of the ball from your paddle. The characters move in all directions with joysticks. The ball can be stolen on the backcourt. The goal is to score points by putting the ball through the hoops. And you can kind of see the screenshot from this arcade cabinet on the advertisement flyer, but just imagine it's a Pong game where you can stop the ball on the paddle, which is kind of cool. It's the 57th ball and paddle video game we've seen, and the 4th video game that's saying it's basketball. Or anything about basketball. Most of them have been Pong or similar to Pong, like the Taito style games. This one is multiplayer competitive only, so there's no single player mode or team mode or anything like that, but it is using the digital joystick. Take a look at the joysticks. Now, this is all I have for the screenshot, so you kind of have to use your imagination and zoom in. Those joysticks have the knob on top. They look like more modern joysticks. One of the first times we've seen the small stick and then the round sphere at the top. So 1-on-1, take a look at the other arcade cabinets we've seen and see if you've found those kinds of joysticks. This is one of the first times we've seen that style, but the 10th video game that's using digital joysticks. This is the second game with absolute control, just like we saw with Flim-Flam, and they're copying Pong. Again, the 52nd time we've seen a clone of Pong. The 77th video game that's released in North America up to this point, and this is all I have for advertisement and pictures. That's all we got. Another video game without a microprocessor. Everything has not had a microprocessor up to this point, and the only reason I didn't mark the laser clay shooting system is just because I don't know if Nintendo's system was using anything different than DTL or TTL. All right, so of all the video games you could play in the arcade, we really can't rate it. I love to play it, though, myself. All right, after that, let's see what the next game is. As we play every video game, released at some time in 1974, this is Paddle Derby. Let's check out Paddle Derby with the advertisement flyer. The 97th video game we've seen so far, and the 69th that's been in the arcade. This one's by Nutting Associates. The 4th time we've seen this company. They did games like Computer Space, Wimbledon, the first video game in color, and Computer Space Ball. Paddle Derby is a color Pong variant. Unlike Pong, players do not score when the ball hits the edge of the screen. Players earn points when they hit the ball. Colored balls fill up, showing who has the most points. When one of the bars fills up, that player wins. The game can be played with up to 4 players. So you can see this one advertisement showing, I like how they have a flash around the paddle. Oh, paddle control. We've seen plenty of paddle controls. This one is the 74th video game controlled with paddles up to this point. It's another ball and paddle game, the 58th we've seen so far, but this one does offer a single player mode and 4-player. Oh, there we go. The new concept. You can see what they described. We have bars that add up every time your paddle makes contact with the ball, and whoever maxes their bar out or gets the highest score to the end, then they're the winner. So it's the 27th video game we've seen that allows 4-player play. The 53rd video game that is still cloning Pong, or a variant of Pong, and the 78th video game we've seen released in North America up to this point. So this is fascinating because we're not able to play it. There's no real simulation for this. I can't even find video footage. Have you noticed most of these arcade games are so obscure that there's no one even playing it that I can find? If you do know if there's video footage, let me know. So that's all we have for front and back of the advertisement flyer of Paddle Derby. Another one we can't rate ourselves, so we got to give it a no rating and just keep pressing forward, seeing everything. Our next video game, still released at some time in 1974, is Paddle Choice. Let's check it out together with the advertisement, sort of, maybe. This is the 98th video game we've seen so far and the 70th video game in the arcades. It is the 3rd time we've seen PMC Electronics. Player's Choice is an arcade cabinet featuring 2 different Pong variants to play. Boss, and I think they're showing, oh, okay, there it is. There's the example of what Boss is. Boss is an elimination-style game where 2 or 4 players bounce the ball back and forth with limited lives. Whoever manages to keep his lives longest wins the game. A cross shape is in the center of the screen that bounces the ball unpredictably. Blue line, which it says here at the bottom of the screen, is the other game mode. It's a typical hockey game for 2 or 4 players. The ball has to be bounced into the goal of the other team to score points. So game variations is starting to pick up, which is kind of cool. And I think, there we go. We got an example of the arcade cabinet showing all 4 different players that can play. It is the 59th ball and paddle style video game. And when I say ball and paddle, I just mean it's the genre, what we're calling this genre. You are having a ball and there's a paddle or a way to manipulate the ball on the screen. So this one does allow team play. It's the 4-player game, the 28th 4-player game we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming, and it's offering game modes. The 4th time we've seen a video game offer a way to switch or variation the modes of how you play the game. This one is also allowing you to do the last man standing style of gameplay. The 4th video game that we've seen where you just continue to last as long as you can until you're the last person alive in the game, if you will. So there's the paddles, and I think that's, we got an example of the 2 different game modes. There's boss and there's blue line, and it's a good deal to have these 2 variations because we've only seen these separate as 2 different systems up to this point. It's the 75th video game we've seen controlled with paddles, and the 54th video game that is ripping off Pong. The 79th video game released in North America. And another one, no microprocessor, so we got to give it a no rating and keep going, seeing every single game. What's next? Next up is Ric-O-Chet, released at some time in 1974. Could have been the beginning of 1974, could have been the end. And Ric-O-Chet is another one that's very obscure. All these were left behind just because they're so hard to find. This is all I have for artwork. This is our 99th video game. The 71st we've seen in the arcade, and this one is the 5th time we've seen Allied Leisure Industries. It's still another ball and paddle game. The 60th we've seen so far. It does allow team play. The 17th video game we've seen that has a team mode or a team way to play. The 29th video game with 4 players, but look at that arcade cabinet. That actually is crafted and looks different. I mentioned before how the stand or the pegs of arcade cabinets is kind of slick, but this one looks really, really sharp. I mean, as far as the way it's designed, I really dig this one. So Ric-O-Chet, it's got a nod as being a different, even more different than the other ones we've seen so far. It's still controlled with paddles. The 76th video game, proving that paddles really is the way that video games are controlled right now in 1974. It's the 55th ripoff of Pong, and this one was released in North America as well first, and the 80th time we've seen a video game in North America released first, and another one that doesn't have a microprocessor either. But this is it. It has what they call court play, but it's essentially just Pong. Another one we can't rate ourselves, Ric-O-Chet, I'll see you another day. Our next video game is Smatch, which is a great name. I love that. This one has the ability to be the 100th video game we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming. We made it to 100 video games, and it's Smatch. Let's check it out. This one is the 72nd video game we've seen released in the arcade so far, and this is the very first video game released first in France. And as you can see, the advertisement flyer is en français, done by René Pierre, and the first time we've seen this person and this company. And look at the arcade cabinet. This one is a very different design than how we've seen before either. And that's kind of what makes this era of gaming so unique, is all the different arcade cabinets. It looks so cool. So this one, again, is just another ball and paddle game. The 61st ball and paddle style video game we've seen. This one is only 2-player competitive multiplayer. So look at the control panel. This one's using, again, the digital joystick. The 11th video game we've seen using digital joysticks, but it is copying Pong, the 56th clone of Pong so far. There's really nothing special about this other than you're playing Pong on a different looking system than all the other ones. It is the 99th video game that's using DTL or TTL logic, which pretty much means all the games that are using that. And we can't rate it ourselves because there's no simulation to play in France. So we'll give it a 0 or a no rating. Let's see what our next game is. Coming up next, we're still in the arcades. This is Spike It. And we kind of saw a little bit of this one since we're seeing every single video game. Here's the advertisement flyer. We saw this already from computer games. Club Tennis was the other one we have seen. And there it is, Spike It in the middle. Whole new exciting dimension in TV games that fills the cast box. 6 stick controls that allow 2 players the advantage of moving paddles in any direction. Ooh, fancy. So this one is the 73rd video game we've seen in the arcade and the 62nd ball and paddle style video game. It is controlled with digital joysticks. They're starting to pick up, I guess. The 12th video game we've seen so far, and the 57th variant of Pong. It's still all Pong. This one originated in North America, the 81st video game starting in North America, and I think that's all we got for this one. Just playing another game of Pong. We can't rate it ourselves because it's doesn't have a microprocessor and there's no simulator. So we'll give it a no rating and press forward to see what our next game is. Coming up next is table tennis. I think we've seen that name before, or it should be something we've seen before. Here's the advertisement flyer for table tennis, the 102nd video game we've seen on Chronologically Gaming, and the 74th released in the arcades. This one is by Nutting Associates, the 5th time we've seen this company, bringing us hits like Computer Space, the first game that Atari ever did, or Syzygy software, Wimbledon also, and Computer Space Ball. It is still just Pong. The 63rd video game we played or seen that's a ball and paddle game, and it's called table tennis. So I'm saying it's themed based on the sport of ping pong, the 7th video game we've seen. But you could also argue that Pong was based on ping pong or table tennis. We're only saying if it's ping pong if the actually title of the game is, or they're advertising it as ping pong. So this one is allowing 4 people to play, the 30th 4-player video game we've seen so far, and the 18th game with a team mode to play. The arcade cabinet is so slick. I don't know if I could prefer this or the whole table over the top with the controls under the table. That kind of seems a little cooler, but this circular design is really nice for all 4 people to play. You flip it over the back, it gives you some more information about the new video action game. Doesn't even call it a video game. Video action game sounds pretty cool. So this one is controlled a little bit differently. You can see it a little bit better at this advertisement. It's showing the different styles of table down at the bottom, but look where their hands are. This one's controlled with sliders. The 2nd video game we've seen with this control mechanic. The only other game has been Wimbledon up to this point. It is still just Pong though. The 58th game to rip off Pong, not including the official Pong that's out there. And this one did originate in North America. The 82nd time we've seen a video game from North America first, and still doesn't have any microprocessor inside. It's just, oh, we got lots of good advertising. Look at that. There's the model that has the octagon shape. So cool. All these different styles. Collect them all. We can't play it ourselves, so 0 or no rating from all the games you could play in the arcade. So let's see what our next game is. We're going to go from country to country on this show, just checking out every game. Our next one is Telekick. We're going to Germany. Here's the advertisement flyer for Telekick. Very, very different. Our 103rd video game we've seen so far, and the 75th in the arcade. This one is the first video game we've ever seen that originated and started from Germany. Telekick is a Pong variant for 1, 2, or 4 players with a football or soccer theme, depending on where you are. In a 1-player game, the player controls 2 on-screen characters, which are the paddles. One can only move. You can only move one paddle vertically with a paddle. The other can move in all directions with a joystick. When the ball hits one of the players, it stays still for 2 seconds, during which the player can move with the ball and use the kick button to shoot the ball. In a 4-player mode, 2 of the players can only use vertical movement with the paddles, while the other 2 can use the joysticks. So really cool, interesting control scheme. And the advertisement is off the wall. There's the example of the arcade cabinet, so you can see both the joysticks and the paddles. Very, very unique. We haven't seen anything like this. It is still, though, just a ball and paddle video game. The 64th we've seen so far, and it is doing the soccer theme or a European football theme. The 10th time we've seen a video game that does that. It is a team-style game or a team mode. It's the 19th game featuring team play, and the 31st that features 4 players playing at the same time, or 4 players. There's only 2 games that don't allow you right now to play at the same time. That was Invasion and Win on the Magnavox Odyssey. So this one has both digital joysticks, the 13th video game using joysticks, and the 77th video game that uses paddles. It is the 59th video game that is copying Pong so far. And I'm sure I can tell you that this game is not going to be able to be played by us. Here's some more advertising for Telekick. They're doing something totally different. So it is from Germany, so they're trying something completely new. If you do understand or sprechen Sie Deutsch, then you can take a look at the advertisement flyer and figure out the game yourself. Another one that we can't play because it's using transistor to transistor logic. All right, so after that, let's see what our next game is. Coming up next is TV Goalee, our 104th video game on Chronologically Gaming. Here's the advertisement flyer for TV Goalee. Lots of things happening with this one. This is the 76th video game we've seen in the arcade so far, and the 4th time we've seen this company, Chicago Coin Machine. TV Goalee is a 2-player Pong variant, which is really about the presentation. The TV screen is placed facing upwards inside the cabinet with a pop-up stadium and city skyline around it. The on-screen paddles are controlled with joysticks and can move in all directions. The ball does not ricochet off the sides, but is instead returned to the field when kicked out. The game features some advanced sound effects like a referee whistle at the start of the game and a roaring crowd when a goal is scored. So this arcade cabinet is blending video game with mechanical game. It's, again, I'm kind of fudging the numbers sort of because it's not all true video game. Very similar to what we just saw with baseball. They're having an overlay or something else besides the game program that's enhancing the graphics. But it still is essentially a ball and paddle video game. The 65th we've seen so far with a soccer theme, the 11th video game that is boasting a soccer or European football theme. This one is only multiplayer competitive, so you have to have someone to play or a friend that can go to the arcades with you. This one is the 33rd video game that we've seen so far that has an overlay, or the graphics are assisted with an overlay. And it's most of those were on the Magnavox Odyssey. This one is the 6th video game with an overlay that we've seen in the arcade up to this point. Now, this one was sued by someone. It was involved in a legal dispute. It's the 13th video game we've seen that had some kind of legal action toward it, most likely because they're copying Pong. It's the 60th video game we've seen that's a variant of Pong, but it's being controlled with joysticks. Kind of hard to see in this screenshot of the advertisement flyer. If we zoom in a little bit, you can't see the you can see the joysticks there, but this is the 14th video game we've seen that's using digital joysticks up to this point. But if we look on the inside, look at what they're doing. Really flashy. It still is just Pong. It has the goals on either side, and you have a paddle that goes back and forth. But look at all the extras. That's really flashy. It is the 83rd video game we've seen released in North America first, and it still is programmed with without a microprocessor. So we can't play it or check it out ourselves. Got to give it a no rating, but man, looks really cool, and I'd love to be able to see and play this with all the bells and whistles literally in the wild. All right, let's see what our next game is. Our next video game is barely a video game. This is our 105th video game, sort of. The 77th one we've seen in the arcades up to this point, and this one is by the company that will go on to do amazingness. It's Nintendo, the 2nd video game we've seen by Nintendo, and they're bringing us Wild Gunman. Let's check it out. Here's the advertisement flyer for Wild Gunman. They call it a simulation system from this one. After the temporary success of the laser clay shooting system, Nintendo used the same idea and created another film-based shooter, this time featuring live-action footage of Old West cowboys. When the bandit's eyes flash, that's the player's cue to draw and shoot. If the player's fast enough, the gunslinger falls and they move on to the next one. There's 4 films, and I can show you here, there's all the different ones that are featured in this game. The title and some of the basic ideas were reused later in Nintendo's 1984 Famicom game of the same name, and that's the one I was familiar with. I had no idea that Nintendo did this first, because this one is barely considered a video game because it's using film. So this one is the 2nd time we've seen anything by Nintendo. The only thing has been laser clay shooting system. This game was done by Hiroshi Yamauchi and Gunpei Yokoi. So this advertisement flyer is showing you what kinds of things you'll see on the screen, but essentially this is like what we'd see in the 90s, those full motion video games, but it's all the way back here in 1974. This game is a light gun shooting gallery game, and it is it's controlled with a light gun, a really cool looking rifle you can see on the arcade cabinet. No orange parts on the gun. It is all rifle. It's not as realistic as what they had with laser clay shooting system. That was real rifles with blanks that were firing off. This one is not using real guns with blanks. So they're kind of working their way closer to toys here with Wild Gunman. This is the 8th video game we've seen that allows you to play a light gun, or controlled with a light gun. There's been 4 games we've seen on the Magnavox Odyssey, and this one is the 4th that we've seen in the arcade using the light gun. It's been the Laser Clay Shooting System, Balloon Gun by Sega, and Quack by Atari. All those companies are trying to get in on it. I don't have a lot of artwork for this one. It's single player only, as you can see, at least these standalone systems. And this advertisement flyer is also showing Shooting Trainer, which we're going to be seeing pretty soon, or a little bit later. It has a video backdrop and an actual screen and a projector that's projecting it. So that's why you could say maybe it's a video game, maybe it's not. It's a little bit loose. This one is taken from a first-person perspective, and it's the 5th video game we've seen that's doing that. This is also the very first video game that has the setting in the Old West, or a Western-style video game. There was a video game that had the theme of a Western game. It was Shootout on the Magnavox Odyssey, but it really didn't take place in the Wild West. This one does, at least the video footage has it. This is also, to my knowledge, the very first video game, again in quotes, that is, the sound is done in stereo. Everything up to this point has been using single channel mono sound for all games and all systems, everything up to this point. So let me know if there's a video game that has stereo before Wild Gunman. Pretty cool. It's also the 16th video game we've seen that's originated and started in Japan, and this one went different places besides just Japan. So fun. We obviously can't play it ourselves, but what was it like to play Wild Gunman? Well, it kind of looked like this. You started the game, and they give you instructions of what you're supposed to do. So I'm showing it if we were to see the backdrop. They're giving you what to do. The video plays, and you can see where we have to shoot before when the eyes flash. Ready? Oh, go! And if you do it right, then it switches to another screen, and then it shows them dying, and then we won. So this one is what you would see when you first played the game. After you put your coin in, you get your gun ready, they give you the instructions, and then you have to try to go from scene to scene, and how far can you be the quick draw for the game. Fun stuff. So can't play it ourselves, so I'm going to have to call this one a not rated video game of all the games you could play up to this point. All right, let's see what our next game is. All right, the last video game of 1974, not that it was released last, but the last one that we are going to see. This is Wipeout. Let's check it out together, starting with the advertisement flyer. Oh, yeah. This is the 106th video game we've seen so far, and the 78th in the arcades. It's again by Ramtech, the 6th time we've seen this company, and the 3rd time we've seen Hal Ivey. Way to go, Hal. He did Clean Sweep, he did Baseball, and this is another interesting one. Wipeout is a 4-player Pong variant. Each player controls a paddle at one side of the screen and must prevent a ball from hitting their side or lose a point. When a player loses all points, it is game over. Wipeout. The last player in the game wins. At the center of the screen is a cross, which when touching the ball deflects at different random angles and keeps players on their toes. It's going to be released as other names too, like it'll be licensed by Volley as Countdown. So this is the advertisement flyer for the first time that you would see in North America. This one is still just a ball and paddle game, the 66th ball and paddle we've seen so far, and it is only multiplayer competitive, which means you have to have some friends to play. It has the last man standing game mechanic. The 5th time we've seen a video game that's done that, like Elimination or Quadrupong or Leader and Player's Choice. So they're trying to have a game where you be the last one to survive. Cool concept, cool idea. Here's the example of the arcade cabinet. It's still controlled with paddles, like many others. The 78th video game we've seen controlled by paddles, and it's the 61st clone of Pong we've seen so far on Chronologically Gaming. It's the 84th video game that was released first in North America, and the 104th video game that's controlled with either DTL or TTL. No microprocessor inside. There's the arcade marquee, an example of the screenshot of the game, but we aren't able to play it ourselves. So we have to give this one another no rating, and just imagine playing all those variants of Pong that we will be playing later. All right, that's where we got to put all the video game playing on pause. Or we really didn't play any games. We were just showcasing all the games in the arcade from 1974. there's a lot of other games that were released and came out in 1974 besides the ones we hit on. We really don't hit or play on games on terminal or games on mainframe yet. We may do a little bit later, but I did want to hit on or let you know about a few other games that were released that should be important. One of them was Batnum on the Wang 2200. It's kind of a variant of NIM. It also came out sometime in 1974. There's also Battleship that was on the Wang 2200. The first dedicated Pong consoles have already started to appear in 1974, like Pingotronic or Video Master Home TV game. Also, the very big game, Maze War, is on terminal right now. Maze War is essentially a 3D maze game and one of the very first-person shooters, if you want to call it that, or a multiplayer deathmatch shooting game that you can play with other people. It's huge. It's big. We won't be showcasing it, but that one was also released at some time in 1974. There's also Conquest that's out. There's also Teaser that's out. And there's Super Star Trek, all on mainframe. Another really big thing to point out is at this point, around 1974, is when TSR Hobbies releases the original Dungeons & Dragons tabletop, which will again influence so many games later. And bringing up tabletop games, there's also plenty of war games that are out right now. They're going to influence all those strategy games too. So those games are available and you could be playing them right now, even though we didn't showcase them. So next time on the Chronologically Gaming Backlog, the first games of 1975 with Atari or Key Games proving they cannot be stopped. That's it for today, and like I always say, guns. Been making video games more fun since 1971. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the channel and joining me on my quest to play every single video game in order of release. We'll be streaming live every weekday at 9 p.m. Central, so join us and let us know if we missed any games along the way. This video would not be possible without Launchbox, RetroArch, and MAME. Tell all your friends there's some crazy guy named Chronologically Gaming trying to play every single video game. We have links down below that'll send you to places like our Discord and Patreon, and one that says all the video games we've ever played. If you go there, it's a list of everything, and you can click right to the game you want to see. Chronologically Gaming is the name to look for. We are perpetually retro, and we will catch you next time.